Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 7 of Application Development with ASP.NET with your host, Mr. Nelson LeKay. Nelson.
Hey.
Hey. And Zach Parrish.
Good evening.
And myself, Jason Busby. Now, we're going to pick up where we left off in Episode 6, which was the starting phases, the planning phases of the creation of a project management system, where our primary intent is to have a system that's going to facilitate helping to keep things streamlined with the creation of our MMO for the upcoming member sponsor MMO class that we're going to be doing. But we discussed during that video, and then we did a little more discussion afterwards about how we could take and push things a little bit further and make this system where it's not just pigeonholed to our specific needs with the MMO. We're pulling a lot from Nelson and his experience in the web development world working with clients, and we're going to be using a lot of the terminology that he has seen from working in that particular industry. And we've also discussed having this system be available to all of our member sponsors so that they can go in and create jobs. And so if they have friends that are helping work on assets for the games that they're developing or whatever project it may be, then they will have access to this system. Of course, by following along with these videos, they're also going to gain the ability of simply creating their own system, but altering or adding whatever additional functionality they may need. Now, in this last video, when we wrap things up, Nelson said, well, let's start out in the next video with a look at just, creating just the basic part of the CRM, just to get something starting to form up in place. And so in this video, we're going to talk about what technologies we're going to use. We're going to get them set up, and we're going to get the project rolling. So with that, Zach, you want to pull us up a fresh whiteboard?
I think I've already got one. I think I just need to hide the one that's here. So let's make this go away, and we should be all set to go.
So technologies. So let's, obviously, we're going to be using ASP.NET MVC3. Correct, Nelson?
Yes.
Now, outside of that, what else and why?
All right. Well, the first thing is obviously our data. We need some way to get data from a database, and as much as I dislike our DBMSs, they're still used very commonly. So in order to make our lives easier, we're going to be using Hibernate to grab data out of them.
So obviously, as you said, database. So we can go ahead and just jot down MySQL as well.
Right. But yeah, and Hibernate is database agnostic. We could.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Just basically change our configuration file and connect to a Microsoft SQL Server if need be. Okay. All right, so what else?
The next thing is a IOC container.
Okay.
In version of control, it's a design pattern. Well, it's not really a design pattern. In version of control is a methodology. Dependency injection is a design pattern, and an IOC container facilitates dependency injection. And we're gonna talk about it and why we need it, but it's definitely something that is going to be used heavily.
Okay. So for the IOC container, since we want to go ahead and get these names jotted down.
Yeah. We're going to be using Autofac.
Okay.
The same principles will apply if you're using Ninject, Unity. Yeah, there's Microsoft actually makes an IOC container called Unity. I just thought that was funny. Could never find any documentation on it because it always brought me to Unity forums.
Is it FAC?
Yes.
I thought so.
And then there's Castle Windsor, Structure Map, and a few others I'm probably forgetting. But we're going to be using Autofac. They will all work pretty much the same.
And again, one more time, because I was talking and then you were talking and Zach was writing. In version of control, IOC container, one more time. So what exactly does this offer to us? Again, it's a methodology, not a design pattern.
Yeah, IOC is a methodology, and IOC container is a framework to facilitate fulfilling that methodology through the dependency injection design pattern. And do you want me to define those right now, Jason?
Actually, I think just some sort of overview would be helpful for those that have never heard of this.
Well, the IOC methodology is that your objects should be sufficiently abstracted away from implementation details so that everything that an object needs to do in order to fulfill its role, is in some way provided to it in the form of interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
Dependency injection is a specific way to practice IOC. So IOC is the methodology. Dependency injection is a design pattern. Dependency injection is where you provide all your dependencies as either properties or constructor arguments, and those constructor arguments or properties are filled in by whoever instantiates that class.
Okay.
An IOC container is a framework that's going to facilitate dependency injection for us. It's going to be responsible for instantiating most of our classes, including our controllers, and it's going to be responsible for fulfilling, based off convention, based off of any of our configuration, those contracts with concrete implementations at runtime, so that code remains cleanly decoupled. In addition, IOC containers allow you to manage the lifetime of your objects. So if you want to specify that an object should be only instantiated once per request and shared between that request, or an object should be instantiated once per application and reused, so like kind of like a singleton, like I was saying in the singleton video, that while I use the concept of singletons, I never use the static instance property. I instruct my IOC container to treat an object like a singleton.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so that's good enough for us to get started, because we're going to have a video in the future on IOC over in Nelson's Corner. So so moving on. So we've got Autofac that we're going to get. What else?
Okay, so I'm sure you guys a few videos ago heard how much I love Razor, and I really love Razor.
And again, it's a view engine or rendering
engine,
rendering engine for doing the model view controller style applications when working with MVC.
And it's all first party, and the beautiful thing about Razor is you can use it everywhere. You can use it for email templating. You don't even have to be an ASP on it. It's really awesome. It's built to be really robust, and it's a lot better than the web forms view engine. Mm-hmm. But there are better view engines out there.
So while Nelson said it was the best thing since sliced bread, he's found something better since.
Actually, this project that I'm about to talk about has been in existence in one form for a long time. It has been recently ported to the .NET world. Razor was actually introduced incredibly recently, so I was kind of all really happy that finally a first-party supported a rendering engine that actually made sense was released. But then I eventually went back to this other view engine because it finally works with .NET 4. It didn't a year ago, the last time I played with it. It finally supports .NET 4. It's really concise, really quick to write, and it makes perfect sense.
And it's called
NHaml. And NHaml is the .NET port of the Ruby view engine called HAML. And NHaml works, we'll see what it looks like, but it works a lot like Razor in that you have these things that are HTML, then you have, snippets of source code. And the cool thing about NHaml, by the way, is you can actually, you know how with Razor you have C# or VB, CHTML or VB HTML?
Mm-hmm.
With NHaml, you have C#3, C#4, F#, Iron Ruby, and Iron Python to choose from.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
It's a really nice view engine. We're going to be using the C#4 compiler, but we'll see what that looks like, and I personally love it. It's so fast.
Cool.
And then finally, and if any of you people are Ruby people, you would know that HAML always comes with Sass. But unfortunately, Sass doesn't have a .NET port. So we can get it to work using Iron Ruby, and I would honestly like that to happen, but it's kind of messy. It makes things a lot more muddled than they should be. So instead, we're going to be looking at dotLess. And dotLess, I haven't really defined what I'm talking about. dotLess dotLess and Sass are both CSS preprocessors. So they let you write your CSS in a particular way. They get run through these preprocessors, and the CSS gets spat out in a way that the browser understands. And dotLess is the .NET port of the less CSS, which is another Ruby thing.
So then the reason you would use something like this would just be to streamline, simplify the writing of your CSS?
Yes.
Okay.
It supports variables. I'm pretty sure it supports mixins, but my favorite feature is it supports the ability to create rules in a hierarchy.
Okay.
And that's incredibly important. Leads to significantly less amount of typing and significantly cleaner code, which is always preferable.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool.
Anything else that you can think of?
Something?
Or is this enough to get us started?
I think this is all we talked about, right?
Okay.
I think so.
So if we ever wanted to look at CoffeeScript, we could add that in.
Oh, yeah. See, the thing about CoffeeScript is, in order to get it to work, you have to do a lot of nasty things. At least in order. See, no one else had. I'm actually the second person to get it to work in .NET as far as the internet's concerned, and the first person used an older version that doesn't work how he did it, and the newer versions of CoffeeScript. The way I got it to work was really bizarre. I basically. Basically CoffeeScript depends on Google's V8 JavaScript engine, and fortunately that's not managed code. So I had to compile a native DLL, wrap it with a managed executable, invoke it from my program, and it was quite awful. But I see Zach is asking me to define CoffeeScript, and CoffeeScript is a JavaScript preprocessor. So in the same sense that dotLess preprocesses CSS, CoffeeScript preprocesses JavaScript. And it gives us a lot of awesome things. It gives us C# style lambdas. It gives us a white space sensitive formatting, which is really nice. It really it's just a lot cleaner, and it supports list comprehensions. It supports OOP. It's really awesome.
And it's less typing.
Oh, considerably less typing.
Exactly.
I really hope at some point we can get that working. Maybe I can play around with seeing how to get a more sane way to put it together.
Okay.
That would work in a video.
Okay, cool. But yeah, we'll leave it up there, and Zach under awesome put a maybe, and maybe in future. Did not say put a question mark at the end of awesome, because it is quite awesome. Okay, very cool. So then now we have a list that we can refer back to. Well, we know that we've got MVC3 set up. We know we've got Hibernate set up because we've done some videos over that recently. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Autofac?
We've also got MySQL.
Yeah, that's set up as well.
Yeah, we can start Autofac. Just a quick note, MVC3 was released. If anybody had been following along with these videos and haven't upgraded, you should go ahead and upgrade right now.
Very cool.
Just a quick
Like
note.
Pause the video and go upgrade
yes,
right
pause the
now.
video. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Okay, so Nelson, your computer, and...
Okay, so we have Firefox open.
And just so everybody knows, he's using the Pentactile plugin, so if you don't see an address bar and you don't really see the mouse move too terribly much...
Oh, no, they're going to see the mouse move. I've requested that just so people can kind of see where he's going.
If anybody's wondering where the address bar, it's down here.
Yeah, it's in the lower left-hand corner of your screen.
Anyway, so here are the project pages. NHaml, code.google.com/p/NHaml. And unfortunately, NHaml, you could try downloading the precompiled packages and installing. If you do, just grab this guy. The issue is there's a bug in NHaml. And there's a bug that I can't honestly believe how it got overlooked. But essentially it has to do with how it generates, because it generates C# code just like how Razor generates C# code. And the files it puts those C#, the C# code it generates is incredibly long. Like it creates really incredibly long. And the deeper inside, or the more folders that you are inside of a folder, the bigger your hierarchy is, the more of a chance that you're going to end up with a path that's over 256 characters long, which is unsupported in Windows. It'll throw an exception deep within the bowels of NHaml, and it'll get all screwed up. You might not experience that bug because you might be working on a path that's not big enough to cause that error. I happen to be, and you might be right now, so we're going to show how to actually go ahead and patch that and get it fixed. So we're going to download the source code, we're going to add a few lines to a file, and we're going to compile it, then we're going to use our binary instead of using their distribution. So go over to GitHub and download the source. So just hit download tar zip. I already have that downloaded. So go over here. So here is what I know. here's what I downloaded from GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and extract that. And here's the source file. Go into src. The file's under NHaml utils utility.cs. And after a quick debugging session, I found this is actually where the class names are generated. So the template path is the actual path to the class. And you see what it's doing here is it's not making this any shorter. So what it's going to end up with is if your CS file is at C, programming test.cs or whatever, or test.haml, your corresponding class name is going to be C programming test haml. The issue with that is that's also going to be the file name. So basically, it's going to get incredibly big. Just imagine like that, and imagine that a few levels deep, and we want to fix that. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the behavior of this to just return that, or just return this as the class name. We just want to yank everything up to here.
Okay.
And we're going to use link, because link's awesome. And we're just going to say template path equals template path dot split. Last. There we go. I'm actually going to do last or default, just because template path, I don't know the public contract of this method, and they don't have XML docs, because that's awesome. So I don't know if it's valid for template path to be empty, and if template path were empty, dot last would throw an exception. So last or default will just return null. So then I'm going to close that out. Now I'm going to go ahead and compile it, and I'm going to open up, because I don't want to open up Visual Studio. Hey, look at this. I'm actually going to close this and open it up again. Just so we can show where you grab this, just head down to Microsoft Visual Studio 2010, Visual Studio Tools, Command Prompt. This is no different than the existing Command Prompt. It just sets a bunch of environment variables that are used for building. I'm going to move over into this folder. Then we do MS-build. MS-build, and then the solution name. I'm actually one level too high. NHaml.sln is the solution, so we're just going to do MS-build NHaml.sln /C configuration equals release, and that just tells it to build in release mode. It's /p for property. There we go.
So it wasn't /C, it's /p.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And don't worry about those warnings. Those are just because they didn't provide XML docs on publicly facing methods. Oh, there's an error. No, that was actually a sample. That should just be the sample. Yeah, samples failed to build. That's fine. We don't care about the samples. We only care about NHaml, bin, release, and haml.dll. And that's all we care about.
Okay. Cool.
So there's our build of NHaml. So you want to move on to the next dependency?
Yeah.
So Autofac. code.google.com/p/Autofac. Go to their downloads folder and grab this guy. You could grab this guy. He probably would work, but it's beta and it's new, and I don't want to have any issues. So I'm going to go ahead and download that.
So, which we've got a couple of them now downloaded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've already downloaded everything, just in case a website decided to go down or something like that.
Yeah. If I was in production, I'd probably use the beta one, but because I'm in a video, that was another attempt at a joke.
Oh. Awesome.
So here is our Autofac, and the only DLLs we're going to be needing is configuration Autofac integration.mvc, and that's it for Autofac. So dotLess.
Did you want to Did you want to pull those out of the archive and put them in a folder or something?
Yeah, I'm going to be pulling these out of the archive and dumping them into the solution folder once they get once we create a solution folder.
That's cool.
So yes, dotLess. dotLess.org or dotLessCSS.org, all spelled out. You can see it right there. Just download. Big yellow button. This one doesn't work for some reason. I don't know why. So, yeah. I've been using one of these ones. I've been using that one for a while, and it works just fine. So just go ahead and grab this release off GitHub, and that's all working just fine. And then we already have that downloaded over here. It's one of these. It's that one. And then all we'll need out of this is the dotLess.core.
All right, fantastic.
So yeah, so is that good?
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Sounds great.
All right, so let's create a project.
Yeah.
Have we figured out a name?
No, we haven't.
No, but some sort of name other than console, probably 11 is what would come up this time, which would be a good idea.
The best project management system ever. Console application 11.
Told you.
There you go.
All right, so you're going to Web, MVC3, and what do we want to call it?
Hold on.
As opposed to the garbage folder?
Well, which is the folder above it. Stuff and things, we got...
No, something with project management. PMS.
Nice.
So,
We can start there. We can change it later.
okay, we want this to be empty, and we're just going to select Razor. Doesn't matter. You're replacing that in a second anyway.
Okay. Now, I wasn't paying attention. Are we getting an empty MVC setup, or are we getting their... Okay,
no, we're
yeah.
getting an empty one
Yep,
with
we're getting
just
empty.
these scripts in there.
Yep, cool.
So probably the first step would to be nuke both these CSHTML files and add in our dependencies. So I'm going to find the open in... It's down here. You have a lot more items in yours than mine, Jason. Go ahead and go into project management. Actually, I'm going to close Visual Studio. I generally do this. I generally do an src in a lib folder for source and lib, and then here's where I'd also put my build scripts, which we'll definitely talk about because we need to figure out how to deploy this.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to be talking about deployment just right away, but it's going to be very important.
Yep.
So we'll need Autofac. We'll need...
And this is in the lib folder.
NHaml. Yes. These are just where I'm going to dump the binaries.
Right.
Autofac and then Hibernate. And dotLess. And that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the binaries into this folder. Actually, I lied. We need .web too. There's that. Copy .less over.
Yeah, there you go.
We just need .less core. Copy our custom build of NHaml over. I'll do that last. Copy over in Hibernate. I just moved them, didn't I?
I don't think you did anything.
Yeah, it doesn't. There we go.
I thought I was just lagging. And then we're going to be using linfoo. And then we need our NHaml build, which is under src NHaml bin release and NHaml.dll, which doesn't go in there. It goes in there. Alright, sweet. So all of these things need to be referenced in our project, which isn't open. After we wait about a year.
You know, it happens.
Alright, so we want to go ahead and add pretty much all of those here. We might split it up a little bit later. I generally do, but for now, let's just dump it all in the web app.
Okay.
Or the web app. Which that's not acceptable. It needs to be called web app. Hold on. This is my own personal convention, but I really like calling the web application because we're going to have, hopefully we are going to have multiple projects under this folder. I like the solution to be the project name, and then I do web app. And the reason I do web app is W is near the end of the alphabet, so that as we add additional projects, web app will generally always be at the bottom.
You know, you could call it Zach app, and then that would be perfect. I'm just saying.
Don't make us destined for failure.
All right.
Instead of start a project. Okay, so now
we're gonna go all the way.
We are going to add stuff. Add all of those are going to be required.
So basically, you're just systematically going through the lib folder and grabbing all these references you just put in?
Yes.
Cool.
And NHaml. One day NuGet will replace all of this, but NuGet isn't to a point where we can quite use it yet, at least in my opinion. I know there are people who use it, and eventually it'll get... NuGet's a new package manager for .NET, where all this would be automatic. But okay, next thing is, generally you'd want to put this in source control and deploy this to other project or other environments and be able to build it. We want to make sure that the web app is actually referencing the DLLs as a relative path. And sometimes, due to some weird, bizarre combination of things installed in your GAC, things in other locations, it might not always pick up on the fact that it needs to use a relative path to get to these binaries. So to force it to do that, I'm going to unload the project, right-click, hit Edit, and if you ever wondered what's in a CS proj, this is a CS proj. I'm going to find my references and make sure that they have the hint path set to the relative location of all of these DLLs, which it looks like they do. So that's cool. So right-click, reload. So that's something you're always going to want to make sure that you take care of, because you will run into weird issues if you don't. Okay, well, the first thing would probably be to talk about... Actually, NHaml would probably be the easiest thing. NHaml, then less, then Autofac, then Hibernate, I think would be the easiest way to do this.
Cool.
Just because Autofac is going to make our Hibernate situation a lot easier. And where is your start menu, Jason?
Well, I don't know. What'd you do with it? Hang on.
Probably have to hit the Windows button on this end.
Yeah, we might have to. There you go.
There you go. I'm going to head over to the NHaml documentation and cheat a little bit, because I've only done this once, and I'm not going to embarrass myself in the whole video. Where's this stupid documentation? There we go. How to get. There's stuff we have to throw in the web config, and there's one line of code that goes in the ASICs. Yeah, there we go. Just grab this. This is going to be our awesome configuration section. And I'm having start menu issues. But
yeah, hang on.
Add this to our config sections group. And we will... I don't know where that came from. Oh yeah, I forgot. Control Y. Or Shift Y, sorry. That's how you copy with that enabled. I'm going to nuke all that. That's annoying. We're going to talk about web.configs. Web.configs are incredibly important, incredibly convoluted file that you need to understand in order to do pretty much anything. But we'll get to that later, definitely at some point. So
You need to understand it, just not right now.
Oh.
That's Photoshop.
Yeah. I'm going to dump this at the... no, I'm going to stick it under Razor. We're going to leave Razor configurated in case we want to use it.
Configurated. My new favorite word ever.
That was awesome.
All right. And we're going to say auto recompile true. We're going to want the C#4 compiler. Remember this you have to put in some bigger string. Iron Ruby just won't work. You have to do a bunch of stuff to get working with Iron Ruby, Iron Python, and F#. But that's a really, really awesome feature. We're going to leave that as the default. We're going to say use tabs true because I don't like spaces at all. So that will use tabs for indentation.
Okay.
Also, we need to add our assemblies. So we need to add our web app so that it can reference DLLs in our web app.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to add a namespace that doesn't exist yet, but it's going to. It's going to be called webapp.viewModels. And then let's also grab these guys too. So we get some stuff like helpers and things. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. Just totally reminded me. I totally forgot that there's one extra change I made to NHaml that is going to... let's just do it now. It's not going to affect us for a while, but it will eventually affect us, and while we're in here, we might as well talk about it, I guess, if you forgive me, Jason.
No,
it's
all
your
good.
call. It's
yeah,
your call.
it's all good. These things happen. And sometimes they happen on video.
Yes. Well, there is a file that I need to edit. It's the base template. Base template. There we go. Just go ahead and edit it. And is that it? No. Oh no, it's the it's the DLL that I totally forgot about too. This is actually good because I forgot to grab over a DLL. It's the NHaml.mvc DLL that we need.
There you go.
NHaml Web MVC. And then we need to change this NHaml view. And there's a reason why we have to do this. It has to do with the resolution of extension methods. But the NHaml view actually has to implement, or its HTML helper has to be of type tModel in order for our helpers to work properly. Otherwise, our custom helpers aren't going to work. So just add the tModel right there, and then you should be good. So let's go ahead and recompile that. And I closed the compiler thingy.
So that's on lines 36 and 41 for those trying to follow along.
31
and 36.
31 and 36. Okay, make sure I'm keeping up.
Hopefully we won't get any errors.
Save those samples.
Yeah, hopefully those are just the samples. 4 errors we got. Yeah, right here. What line did I miss? Oh no, that's NHaml MVC View. Under the... Yeah, that's fine. That's not fine. Oh no, that is fine. Is this fine? That's fine. We're not using Iron Ruby.
And also samples there, that's fine.
Also
Okay.
should be okay.
basically we broke these 3 projects. They just require exactly equivalent change to what we just did. So now let's grab our NHaml and our NHaml Web MVC and dump them in our lib. All right. So
do you need to go and add that other reference?
yes.
Cool.
Okay. And then we also need one other namespace, and can you possibly guess what namespace it is that we need, Zach? Come on, just take a wild stab.
Link.
Yep. Okay, so those are all the namespaces that are going to be... These are the namespaces that are going to be automatically imported to the C# files that NHaml generates for us behind the scenes. So the next thing is we have to actually add the NHaml view engine. So much wasted space. And we do that in our application start, and because some of these callbacks require underscores, which is actually the convention of the web server, I'm going to go ahead and instruct resharper to ignore inconsistent naming for this file, so we don't get any squigglies.
Okay.
And also be cautious with the heavy use of resharper. Just at the very least explain what you're doing.
Yeah, just in case. With a HTTP application at the very top.
Oh yeah, I yanked in a new, I probably yanked this guy in, using system.web.
Yeah.
Alright, so we need view engines .engines.add, and then we need a class from NHaml. Actually, it's probably just in that NHaml or MVC namespace. Oh, there is no NHaml MVC namespace. Is there a view engine namespace? Ah, screw it. I'll just look at the docs. Where are you? Actually, what am I doing? It came with samples. Yeah, if I just had a good memory, but I guess I don't, so...
You know, as long as you can remember that you don't have a good memory, you're already a step ahead of the game. Because then you'll compensate for it. Like this.
We can ignore all... My scroll wheel isn't working. Oh.
He needs this. Hang on just a second, man. I gotcha. Just let me have the mouse for a sec, and I'll bring you the scroll bar. There you go.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to... there it is. NHaml MVC View Engine. It's a good name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to alt enter, which is going to bring in a...
Using NHaml Web MVC.
Yeah. So that's actually all we need to get NHaml to work. We have our web.config with our options that we need, and then we have our adding it to the view engines collection.
Very cool.
And notice that I didn't actually remove any view engines, so CSHTML files will still work just fine.
Okay.
But we're going to be using NHaml for most of everything. So I'm going to create a home controller to test this out with. Alt enter. And unfortunately, I have that using view models in there, so I'm going to actually have to create a view model, otherwise it's going to... by the way, I just deleted a bunch of folders we don't want. It's going to freak out if there's not a viewModels namespace. In order to have a viewModels namespace, there needs to be a viewModel class in that namespace. So I need to go ahead and do that. Tell ReSharper to go away. And then that just because now we have a class in this namespace will exist and we won't get an error. And then to do it, to create it, I'm going to delete these CSHTML files, create a folder just like before, which is going to be home, and then no, I have a ReSharper shortcut to create HAML files on my setup. Just going to be index.haml. And this is HAML, and I'm just going to do actually one. I'm going to explain this all in a second. I just want to make sure that everything is working properly. So Control F5.
And then I take it, yeah, if you want to, because yeah, it's going to bring, which that's fine.
Yeah, I actually want to bring this up in Firefox, so that's what you're saying, because I want to look at Firebug with it.
Exactly. So you just go ahead and, hey, it's working.
Hey, look at that. Sweet.
Finally something worked on the first go.
Don't jinx it.
Okay, so NHaml. The first thing about NHaml is that will bring in a doc type. It'll bring in HTML4 transitional, which kind of upsets me, but I haven't had the energy to figure out how to make it XHTML, because actually XHTML is going away, which also depresses me. Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry to hear that.
I don't know how they possibly screwed that up so badly. But anyway, HAML is really interesting. It's white space sensitive, which could be inferred by the use tabs instead of spaces configuration option right there. So when I do something like this, and I'm indenting,
You don't have to have end tags because it's reading the indentation.
exactly. So this brings in the doc type. This declares an HTML element. This declares a head element. This declares a body element. This declares a title element with this content. This declares an H1 element with this content. And then this is actually equivalent to that. Same with this, but when you have just content, you can just put it on the same line if it's one line.
Gotcha.
Indentation is handled, yeah, like you said, through tabs where you don't have to close anything. So if I refresh and view source, you'll see what it came up with is this, which is a really nice, well-formed HTML document. Or it's XHTML transitional. That's bizarre. I'm gonna go figure out why mine's not sometime soon. Yeah, so just like Razor, you can inject C#, well, C#4 specifically because we told it to use that compiler.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that, there's two ways to do it. One is with the dash syntax, and dash means everything after this is going to be a C# statement. It's not going to be expression, it's going to be C# statement. So I can declare variables. So let's do this. Let's declare a title as this, because remember, we're all good SEO practitioners, and our titles are the same as our H1 tags. And then var is a word. So here is a line of C#. So if I go ahead and refresh, you'll see that nothing special happened other than my title going away, because that is just literally compiled into C# and run and executed. So how do we dump this variable we just created into our document? The next syntax, so you have the dash, that brings in a C# statement, like a var or an if or for each. And then you have the equals. Equals brings in a C# expression. So this is equivalent to the, so if you guys have been following along with Razor, dash equals that, right? Equals that.
Okay.
So dash statement equals expression. So that's just really straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do equals and then title, because title is a variable that's currently in scope. And then we can do the same here. We can say equals title. And now I come over here, and you'll notice my title is now the same as my h1, because that code was this was evaluated. And remember, this uses the same sort of thing where the HTML string gets escaped, or the HTML string does not get escaped. Strings get escaped. So if I were to do this, we get
Nice.
link tag, which
Whoa,
is not,
no, that's not nice there. I was looking at the title at the top.
which it's not working properly for whatever reason. But whatever.
Yeah, we can look at that and come back and talk about that in the next video. So,
Because that's another, like you said before, that's a huge security
oh,
concern
absolutely.
that we're going to have to get around. Probably some setting that I didn't grab over for the NHaml. I know it does it, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries. We'll bring that one back up in the next video.
Okay, so, and then like for each loops, I have to, so now models, like how do you bring in a model, a strongly typed model? And we talked about those in the, I know Zach probably, I mean, are you having good time remembering stuff?
No, bits and pieces.
Okay, so we're going to have a, alt-enter. We're going to have a IEnumerable of strings called things passed into our view model. And then our controller is going to instantiate the view model and pass it into the view. Alt-enter. Okay, so now we're passing in data into our template. Notice we do not need to define what view model this HAML file takes. It's so nice. It's inferred from this, because this actually, when view is rendered and it passes it off to NHaml, and NHaml actually compiles the HAML file with the knowledge of the view model that we're passing in at runtime. So there's no need to define what model we're using like we had to do with Razor, where we had to go model, home, index. There's no need to in NHaml. So now to use that, we can do a for each loop. So just like for each things, model.things. Now this is actually going to be really interesting for people. Hopefully, I hope this is really interesting. You interested, Zach?
I'm so interested. I can't even express.
Okay, well I'm going to create a list in OL, and then I'm going to create LIs under it, and these LIs are just going to print out item. And yeah, I've already done this so many times on my home computer that I don't think the spell checker even does anything anymore. So I've added so many things to the dictionary. I just can't stand the red squigglies. So now we see that there's an error, and this is actually a good thing. I know exactly why the error happened. I forgot to build, but I want to show this real fast. These are the kind of errors you're going to get from NHaml. They are really difficult to read. So, but all the information you need to fix it is there. Here is the actual error that was sent back from the C# compiler that was invoked dynamically by NHaml. And we see that object does not contain a definition for things, no extension method things, accepting a first argument of object could be found. So for each item in model things. We need to rebuild this because, yeah, this is the actual line. This is a piece of what NHaml generated. We need to rebuild the project because I added that view model and didn't rebuild. Yeah?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And you notice I don't have to end the for each loop. The curlies are implicit and based off of indentation.
Makes sense.
The last thing that needs to be talked about are attributes. So to give things attributes, like an example, like a table. Let's say we're doing a table. To give it attributes, open curly, close curly. Inside the curlies, you want to do attribute equals value. And the reason this is in quotes is because equals actually takes an expression. So I can put in title, which is going to actually go in. It's not going to be the string literal title. It's going to evaluate this as C# code and pull in title from this variable up here. So that's why we have to encase it in quotes. And then to specify multiple, and I can do 0 right there because 0 in C# turns into 0, but I'm just going to be consistent. And we separate them by spaces. So if we refresh and look at our source, we'll see that.
Nice.
Very cool.
Are there any okay, really quickly. I know we've talked about NHaml forever. Layouts. We have to say something about layouts. We don't want to redefine the HTML tag, the head and the body every single time. We want to just do what's inside here. So to use layouts and NHaml, you either override the layout in the method invocation of view with this overload or this overload. You see the master name? That's what you'd specify the layout. Or you have an application.haml, which is by default going to be the layout that every single action uses. Or we have a layout that in the shared folder, this has to be in the shared folder, that has the same name as our controller. So home.haml will override application.haml.
Gotcha.
And then to render content inside of to designate where your content of your action actually goes in a layout, you just do underscore. So this will give us pretty much the same results minus what should have been there. Yeah, I actually totally spaced on that one. Or, no, it's shared. Application.haml. Why isn't that not working? Let me rebuild. Shouldn't make a difference, really. Oh, wait a sec. The H1 just went away.
Yeah, it did.
It's still there. Yeah, my bad. I don't know. Oh, yeah, I deleted the H1.
You deleted
what
it.
am I doing? Yeah, so it was working the whole time.
Well, you can prove it. Go ahead and throw an H1 back in there.
Yeah.
Good enough reason for it to go away, though. Nice.
So, yeah, that was a little impromptu... yeah, sorry about that. Introduction to HAML.
No, it's great.
Cool. And it looks, yeah, it looks pretty straightforward and very clean.
Yep. So, you think we should move on to less?
Yeah, sounds great. If you're up for it.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the .less.core. And the unfortunate thing about less is we're going to have to do server-side processing. We're actually going to, in our head here, I'm going to nuke this. In our head, we're going to want a CSS file, so we're going to do a link tag, and the rel is going to be style sheet, and the type is going to be text CSS. And the href, this is the location of the style sheet. Unfortunately, we can't directly reference the less file. Well, actually, we could if we create an HTTP module, but I don't know. We can maybe do that later or something. Okay. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to reference a controller. We're actually going to pull the CSS out of a controller and have the controller do all the pre-processing for us, which is really cool. So I'm going to have a resources controller, and it's going to have a styles action. And then I'm going to pass in styles. I'm actually just make that singular right now. Style equals site.less. And this is going to be what I'm going to name my less file. But that's actually not important because this isn't pulling from an actual file. This is pulling from a route that's going to be routed to the non-existent resources controller that I'm going to create in a second. So let's go ahead and put that together. Alt insert L. inherit from controller. Wait a second, did I have this inherit from? Yeah, I did. I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly was grabbed because it was.
Oh.
Are
Are you touching things,
No.
or is that on me?
That's all you.
There's something wrong with TeamViewer because it is. Ah, there we go. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Good.
Let's actually delete this because it should be resources controller. And control RR. Extends controller. We're gonna have a style. It's gonna take a style as an argument. And so you see how we're using this resources style and then style equals less. That's going to be bound into this variable.
Okay.
So let's just prove that it works. And we're not going to return a view. We're going to return content. And content is like view, except for it doesn't return a view. It just returns the string literal of whatever you passed in. So let's just return content body background red. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Build. Open up Firefox, and the background should be red. It's not. So to debug this, I'm going to go ahead and open up my... Did my layout stop working? Yeah, my layout stopped working. Oh, no, it didn't. God. Okay, so to debug this, we got to open up Firebug, go over to net, refresh, so we get our stuff. So we see it made a request to resources style equals site.less, and you'll see in the HTML we have that link tag in there that points to an actual route in our application, actual dynamic a dynamic page.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to middle mouse click on this to open it up and see what we're getting. Okay, so we are getting background red. The reason it's not doing it is because Firefox must be one of those browsers that refuses to accept that this is CSS unless the content type is text CSS. And I don't know if we talked about the content type header in the first video, but essentially we have to instruct what content type that we're passing back.
Okay.
So to do that, we do response content type equals text CSS, and that just makes a header. Control Shift B to build. That just makes a header that will instruct the browser to treat whatever's being returned as CSS.
Cool.
And there we go. So now if I can control middle click, we get the same thing, background red.
Nice.
So now we can put in whatever dynamic stuff we need here. And one quick important note, generally with resources like styles and scripts, we want to cache things. We want to set the expires headers. We want to set the last modified headers. We want to set all that stuff. We're not going to do that right now. But eventually, for performance sake, we're going to want the person hitting our site to not hit this route every single time they refresh the page. Because by default, right now, the response that ASP.NET is returning the browser is telling the browser every single time you see this route or you see this resource, ask for it again.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So we're going to need to instruct it not to do that soon. So now we can actually use CSS or the less compiler in here to, instead of returning that, we're going to return the result of less compiling something. So I'm going to alt insert enter and declare. Oh yeah, you don't like that.
I was going to say, there's that little underscore.
It's a dotLess .core. It's less engine. Alt insert or alt enter. Okay, so now we have our less engine object that we're going to be using to process less. And I did actually notice for the first time that they do have an HTTP handler module, but we're eventually, hopefully, going to extend this resource to do more than just compile less. We want to do concatenation, minification, and caching, and eventually we'll get there. So the next step is to grab the contents of whatever style that we passed in. We passed in site.less, which doesn't mean anything right now. But by convention, all of our styles are going to go in a folder called resources styles. And then so we're going to put our less file in here. And remember, this has no meaning to our HTML. Our HTML only cares about hitting the resources controller. The resources controller is responsible for finding this less file.
Okay.
And I don't know, we can just do this. Alt insert system.io just popped up. Domain. Alt enter system just popped up. Where are you? There you are. I'm going to hide this or no, I'm just going to make it smaller. So this is the path to our style, and we're going to say if not file.exists path, let's just make it return. Actually, since we're returning CSS, we might as well do something evil. So if you see this happen to the page, it means that it couldn't find our style.
Yeah, that is pretty evil. Even reading that code gives me a headache.
It doesn't like this. What doesn't it like? What? Ambiguous reference. To what? Oh, yeah. There's a file method in the controller. So we have to fully qualify that. And then we're just going to do less engine dot transform to CSS. Don't tell me it expects a file back. So that would be... Oh yeah, I think you just pass a null. That's, yeah. So source is going to be this. What don't you like? There you go. And then we're just going to pass a null as the second parameter, and it will return the compiled CSS. Oh yeah, it can be removed. Whoa. Oh.
The most ultimate hotkey ever.
Yeah.
Apparently some hotkey brings up Media Center.
Wow, that sound effect demands unicorns and rainbows.
Okay, so let's see what happens when we do this, and how terribly it fails. Oh, that's actually good.
Yeah, no red and blue.
So that means if we come here,
That should work.
awesome.
Yep.
So now we get this back.
Outstanding.
And then so quick, I'm just going to show the indentation real fast. Let's say we have page body, and he has a margin auto, and we'll talk about all this stuff sometime. So we have a center floating thing, And then under it, we have like a, I don't know, a products table who has a width of 100%. And then some of his guys are tr, or that won't work. It's like tr dot actions or something. And we just can keep on infinitely nesting this. And this is my favorite feature of this, is the ability to do that without having to write a ton of CSS. See, watch what it generates based off of that. Every single one of these has to be fully qualified.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
And by using less, we can break it out so that the CSS file or the less file is significantly more representative of our actual HTML. And this will incredibly decrease the amount of conflicts we get in our CSS files. And then we can also use variables and mixins and expressions and stuff.
Very good.
Very cool.
So that is HAML and less.
Well, since the IOC using Autofac is going to be a little bit more involved, and we just hit over an hour, do you want to go ahead and call it here for today's video?
Yeah, IOC actually is really important. I don't want to kind of skip over it, because if you don't understand IOC coming in, or IOC when we really begin working on it, you'll be lost. So
agreed. Okay, well, excellent video. I mean, we've got everything set up.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be working quite fluently, which is good. So, yeah, tomorrow night we can just pick back up and continue jamming with the next episode, where we'll go ahead and cover IOC and Autofac and get the
Continue
project
with development from there.
rolling. All right, well, Nelson, thank you very much, sir. Zach, thank you, as always. And a huge thank you to our member sponsors out there as we now work our way forwards towards a project management system that we can use with our MMO class. With that, that's going to wrap up this episode. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.